Hit it, quit it, let that deal with it.
Science and religion during the 18th century had a huge impact in society because it's a transition period and it's where a whole bunch of information came to people and they didn't know what to do with it and they didn't know what to believe, so it's a lot of confusion and a lot of new information all at once. So, 18th century France, there was a 7-year war, which is presumably the time period where Grenouille was in his cave. So French finished the war in debt, trying to pay off debt for the rest of the 18th century. And then the French Revolution happened, but even though Grenouille didn't live during that, a French Revolution doesn't just happen after a night or the next day. So it was a buildup, all of the 18th century was a buildup of people were frustrated with the king and the queen and the churches and all that stuff. So the rich versus the poor, so there was no solid middle class. As you can see, like Grenouille, he was born from the lowest of low, like his mom was a fishwife and she didn't want to do anything with him, so yeah. Wow, okay. The historical context of perfume. So 18th century France, that's when Grenouille was born and then his death. So he was only like, he wasn't very old and he didn't live a long span in the 18th century, but he did live enough to be affected by it. So because Grenouille started from the bottom, Grenouille was always climbing the social and economic ladder, so he always wanted to have the poor, he was poor and he always wanted to climb. This is where he went to Baldini, is when he just kept on climbing. So even though the French Revolution didn't happen, during Grenouille's existence, restless atmosphere in France through the 18th century was an all-time thing. Now, religion. So the dominant religion of France would be Catholic religion, and the ultramontanism is the power to the Pope. It's the power according to the Pope and his decisions of how he wants society to work. So defend the superiority of popes over councils, kings, and even temporal oppression. So even the kings didn't have a big thing over the popes. The popes had this huge idea and how they wanted society to be based on religion, and then that eventually starts to change a bit.
Sorry, does the mouse not work?
I don't know.
It's okay.
Don't mind.
It works.
What? A mouse.
So, introduction to science. So science starts to become a huge thing for people, and it's new, and it's nothing they've ever been really introduced to before, because it was always focused on having the blinders on just religion and Jesus and all those morals and ways of living and how to look at life. So the theory of evolution, Charles Darwin, that comes a bit after when Grenouille was born, but all the speculations and all the rumors and all the little talks in town would be, oh, did you hear this, and this could be true, and then when they finally published it, it was after, but it was still something that was coming up and bringing up in conversation. So people were mind blown, they didn't know what to think of it, they were like, it goes against everything that we see in religion, it didn't make sense, the pieces of the puzzle didn't fit, it didn't work for them. So what science did is it brought modernity to the people. So it brought a sense of evolution to the people, talking about evolution itself. So the new, fresh, intriguing ideas were brought to light. A result was breaking free from church. People didn't know what to do. Like, was it just rumors? Was it fake? Was it just trying to get attention of people, kind of sell it? So some people, if they, because they never knew anything but the Bible, they were not sure what to do and where they stood on these two subjects. So do they invest in science or do they invest in religion? Do they keep on going with what tradition was to go with France, with the Pope and what he was saying, and the kings and queens and religion and stuff? Or was it more science and figuring out things and doing more research and broadening your horizons of the planet and what it is? So the transition period. So it was Bible versus the facts and proven scientific research. So in the book on page 56, there's a great number of things that suggest scientific things. So scientific masterpieces came out and put everything in question. Learn that syphilis is a disease and not a God didn't make the world in 7 days, but in millions. Everything has to be proven now with experiments. So people didn't trust anything anymore. They said, okay, now it has to be proven with an experiment, and if it's proven, then you can trust it. There was nothing but the Bible before people believed in it. If that's all the information you're given, that's all the information you can kind of cite or you can kind of live your life by. So, quote, so the monarchy continued to keep the style and title of most Christian of France, and unbelief and libertinage were harbored and at times offended. So libertinage is the disregard of sexual or religious matters. So like in the Liaison Dangereuse, which is the book we read in French last year, it was this whole sexual freedom for the people, and sexual freedom for men and women, because women were kind of perceived as objects and kind of repressed, and they weren't allowed to be sexual only until they got married, were they allowed to have those types of relationships, but men could always kind of show off or kind of flirt, even just the simplest things. So, and then Jansenism is a theological doctrine, originally a religious movement, political and philosophical, which develops the 17th and 18th centuries, mainly in France, in response to certain developments of the Catholic Church and moral absolutism. So basically, it's just evolving. They want people to evolve. They don't want to have people trapped and imprisoned from religion. So, a quote from like Albert Einstein reads, "Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind." So, for all of people in the 18th century, they didn't know whether to accept both. And I think that's right now for us in the 21st century, it's still a problem, but people are allowed to accept it more. So with this question, so which hand do you believe in? Is it okay to believe in both? So are you more pro-science, or are you more pro-God or religion? And why is it okay to believe in both? And even if it is okay to believe in both, and how that could have affected people back then if they would have just known, if it would have just been started off with two different things, how they could have incorporated both in a society so that it wouldn't have been so pro-religion or pro-science and a big fight.
I think definitely starting at that time, people started realizing that it would be okay to have both of them, like to believe in God and to believe in the Bible, but to start questioning things that they so long believed were wrong or different or only God's work. So I think like you said, it's the transition period, so they thought it would be okay to start believing in both, or at least questioning one of them, right?
I personally believe in like pro-religion. However, I do accept pro-science because it's their ideas. They're allowed to think what they want, and like, we weren't there, so we can't prove anything, obviously. So that's what the difference is, in my opinion, is that in today's society, so like nothing's like if you were to put God into today's society, he would have, like, the idea would be different because like now we accept both. Like both of them are accepted in society. Like everyone gets to believe in whatever they want. Whereas in the past it was you have to believe pro-religion because that's what society is.
Is your question about like, is it okay to believe in both now, or was it okay to believe in both back then?
Even both like now and then, like how have things changed, and even if they have, like people are still on the fence, really, because people can't 100% say that they believe in science because they still need that reassurance from higher powers.
Yeah.
And people are also confused with the modern world of today that they can't believe fully in religion because there is so many science aspects in their lives that they need. Like, people like put science down, but they're praying for CAT scans. Like they're praying to God that they'll get better, but they need a CAT scan. So it's kind of like this whole balance that you need both, and both are valuable.
Chloe, not that I don't think your question is valid and interesting, but my concern is that I want to make sure that it kind of gears back and focuses back on the novel.
Okay.
Okay? So I want to perhaps
limit it to just in the novel rather than in today's time. Can I do that?
Well,
Okay.
in the book, Konoe doesn't like understand God because it's such a abstract like idea, and he like you could say that he's more scientific because everything that he's learned about perfume and how to make it was based on experiments and distillation and all that stuff. So I think that like for him, he wasn't really exposed to God because he couldn't understand it. And the same with the people, they weren't exposed to science, so they couldn't understand it. So when you try to mix both, for someone, just like Chloe said, if you're only told or exposed to certain things, it's hard to see the other side. And if she wanted to go back to what Einstein said, you could argue that they both complete each other, and it's only now that I think it's more common that people accept both. And you don't always have to be on your guard to defend your religion or to defend science, because at the end of the day, like it could fit together and the puzzle pieces could come together. So it really depends on how you see it and all the information that you are given and the research that you've done.
Good. I like that. There we go. We're getting better. We're getting back into the novel character analysis, right? Love it. Go.
But for Konoe, I kind of disagree in terms of he acknowledges and understands the concept of God, but due to his point of view, seeing like he sees from his nose more than from his eyes, he has a different point of view than everyone. He's not accepted in any society, so like one, you can't put yourself in his shoes. Two, it's a different point of view altogether, so he could see things that we don't, that would discredit any God or any, like people get hit by cars, or like their life is horrible since the beginning. Why would they want to believe in a God who gave that to them?
So wait, I have a question. So you,
I think he understands God, he just doesn't agree with it.
but I don't think he understands him because he's always questioning him. If he understood him, he would believe.
He believes in, like, he
Doesn't
sees
get the
proof right in front of his
concept
eyes.
of
His life is horrible.
He can't understand it if he's only going.
Just like
No,
people, they didn't understand that syphilis was a disease, like it was a disease because they thought it was a punishment from God. So if Konoe thinks that it's a punishment from God because life is a punishment and these overpowering senses is a punishment to him, then science makes more sense to him. He's like, why would someone curse me with a life? I don't have a mother. No wet nurse even wants me. No priest wants me. No one wants me. People are using me. People are getting rid of me. And I'm living in a cave for 7 years. People don't even notice I'm gone. It's this whole, he thinks that if God would have done that to me, there is no God.
Interesting. Interesting. David.
I think the character that can represent this type of conflict the most was Baldini, because before Konoe came, he would, every single night, he would go and pray to God. I need fortune, I need fortune. Konoe came, he started making money, he started saying, oh, the science thing is actually working, I can start building a whole other factory somewhere else. And he said, there was even a quote that said, in the first time he met Konoe, it said, oh, that night Baldini forgot to pray and it seemed like nothing was wrong. So I feel like for him there's a contradiction between science and religion, and he's the character that you can see the conflict the most. And I feel like he has this faith in God, but it's not as prominent as science came and changed everything for him.
It's just like him trying to move up the ladder. He's trying, and he's trying to give God a chance to bring him the right way.
But it didn't, so he's
But
like,
it
science
didn't, so
is the way to go.
He's trying, but it's not working out for him.
Yeah.
Diego?
I in part agree with Taj in the fact that he understands the concept of God, but also on Karen's point, like he doesn't understand what God does, but he understands, I guess, like the respect that people have for, like, for religion, God, and like his power. So that's why at one point in the book, he's like, when he's imagining his, like, his realm, like his kingdom, let's say, I think it was when he was in the cave, he's like, I will be their God now, or like, because he like is referring to the fact that he'll have as much power,
People have this
great love
concept of love for God, but he says they never even met him. They're living on the streets. They stink. How do they love God? So he wants that love. He doesn't know where that comes from, and that's why he wants to be their God. He wants to feel that even without proving anything to anyone, just by this looking up at the sky, people would be information like science brings.
Just to kind of elaborate on what Taj said and what Aaron said, like we understand the concept of atheism. It doesn't mean we're atheists, right? We understand why they don't believe in God. We understand that it is like a belief that people have that there is no God. But it doesn't mean that we share the belief, which is what I think, like how he feels about God. He understands that people think that he is like, God, but he's so in his own world that he can't relate and he can't put his love to another being and believe that like God is there and loves him, because throughout his whole life he's been used and rejected and not loved by anyone. So how could he possibly believe in God? Because he just can't believe that someone would love him. And also due to that, he sees the way that others love God and like that God has power, and he also like wants that power, and that's why at the end he says he's above God and above religion, but he also says that he is God.
The
So
whole
it contradicts
conflict
itself a little bit.
of that, like he wants to give God a chance in a way, I think, because he doesn't want to stay where his mom was. He doesn't want that same life and just accept what God has given him. He wants to try and see that if both things can help by using science, his science knowledge, and by using like this evolution of a person, that God can help him with that. It's just like a boost. Kind of like when he tries to get the job with Baldini, like he tries. He's trying to make it better. Because otherwise, if God gave you a life, then would you accept it? Most people work up to it.
Vlad and then Laura, they have their hand up.
I think, like, going back to like what Tash said, I think he understands like, the concept of like, God, but I think he has a misinterpretation of like what God wants. And the thing is, like, religion is something. It's not about just living on earth. It's about also going to paradise and living the eternal life. So like, what he wants is to get a better life on earth, but that's not necessarily like the point of like. That's why I think people I live on the street and stuff and still believe in God, is because they believe it's something better later on in another life. While he wants something right now, that's where the conflict is. He wants something right now, while maybe God isn't giving him right now. It's giving a better life later on.
I don't think he acknowledges God in terms of like he's had a really bad life. He doesn't think, oh God did this to me. He doesn't really think how he's so miserable and everything. He acknowledges that he's mistreated, but he doesn't think that there's another reason for that. So I don't think he really believes in God in terms of that, because, and also when in those few chapters, in that chapter where he's mentioning how he's so into his own world and he's talking about how he's God and Alexander the Great and whatever. I just think that he's just thinking about himself and what he has to do, and he's not thinking about somebody else who has power over him.
Yes. Joanne and then Justina.
I feel like religion especially, and also the science aspect, was forced by society. That's what society's talking about, that's what society says. Like, he doesn't understand any of them, so he's just stuck in the middle. And like, he's trying to end up trying to understand both, which in this society back then wasn't acceptable. And he really, I feel like he's not necessarily religious or anything. It was just brought on by society, and he's just trying to fit in, which he did do his entire life. And like by trying to understand, but at the same time he's not understanding it, so like, that's what it is.
It's like on his eternal fence, his whole life, he's on his eternal fence of what? And he's trying to, okay, this makes more sense, and then it comes back to the other, and it's never.
Hey, Justina, and then
I don't think he's trying to understand God. I don't think he's trying to give God a chance. I think that he just cares about himself. Like even in the beginning of the book, it says that when he decided to live, like as a fetus or a baby, I don't know, when he decided to take a breath and live, he did it out of pure malice. Like he's just a bad egg from the start, and he's not trying to like get a chance from God or to better his life. He's just trying to further his goals. He wants to make the perfume just because it will satisfy him and he needs it and it's one of his needs.
Okay.
I don't think that it's at all related.
Okay, I just want to add, because you guys are debating back and forth, and I think that your debates can be settled by selecting key characters to support your ideas. So my bigger question that you can think about is what characters, or maybe here's even a bigger question. What does this novel say about religion and science, and or science? And then look at certain characters, okay? Look at Marquise de Tallard, who is pure science. And then Baldini, who David is right, a very God-loving man, okay? And then you have, yeah, you definitely have Grenouille. But then you also have all these other characters. Think about like, you know, like the massive orgy, right? And the massive orgy is representative of love, right? Like, oh, everybody's in love with one another. And isn't like one of like the clergy there as well? And what the heck is he doing? You know?
Having some fun.
Like, yes, and the children are there too, right? They're all participating. So what does that say about religion and love?
If people pick the
And then what does it say about science? Think about it. Think about it. Karen. Oh, sorry, Paulina. I forgot Paulina. Go.
It's just a question, really. Is there anywhere in the novel where Grenouille specifically, well, not him, it's not the first point of view, but like, does religion versus science, is it ever explicitly said?
Maybe like in
Like, okay, because for example, other characters, we can tell for sure whether or not they're religious or more into science. Kind of goes with what Justine was saying. I don't remember there being a clear, like he doesn't, yeah, like he doesn't talk about religion or God or the Bible in any way that's personal to him, but neither does he talk about science. It's just kind of what he's doing and that he's trying to reach his goal. And we can see that it is through science, but he doesn't talk about it.
I actually agree with everything that you said until the end. No, where you say he uses science. No. I disagree completely. Karen and then Taj.
I think he sees how people love God and like the religion, like he sees how people are either dedicated to science or dedicated to God, and he wants that dedication to him. So he uses his ability and like the love that people give to other people, and he tries to steal it so that he has that love, and that's why he compares himself to God, because God does get that love, and he's like God, like he's comparing himself to someone who he thinks has so much power and so much love given to, whereas so he uses science and he uses like religion. Like how does he make the perfume? Like how does
like he goes to Greece to learn the techniques.
Okay.
But he doesn't care about any of them at all, because he lives, or he's the experiment person, like the monkey, for the science man, and he doesn't care. He doesn't follow him. He just leaves. The Marquise, whatever.
Oh,
he just
okay.
leaves. He doesn't care about what he's talking about. Like,
right.
He really doesn't care. He just wants the power that comes with either religion or. So he doesn't care if you believe in God or
exactly.
He just wants that.
It's kind of
like that's a farce, right? Like that whole Marquise de Tallard and that whole
It's all
Academy
wrong.
of Science was a farce. You see that, right? So what?
I just like that said, I think it's just after power, and whether it's religion or science that will give him this, he will go after it, because like he clearly doesn't believe in God, because like, for example, like he survived when he's born. Like some people would say like God saved him, or like the gift he has to like smell things, he has no smell. Some people would say like God gave him this, but he doesn't believe in that. So that's a sign that like he doesn't believe in God. But also like science, you feel like he just uses it when it gives him power. He doesn't really believe in it.
Okay, interesting. Kristen and Laura.
As you said, if you look at the characters, like, the author clearly does not choose an affiliation because, like, Baldini was so clearly religious, and he dies in such a ridiculous way, and so that didn't help him. And then the Marquis, like, everyone, if you choose a side, like, you're just ridiculous. Like you said, it's a farce, the Marquis. Like, it's clearly ridiculous what he believes in, ridiculous what he does. So both sides are ridiculed, and as like everyone said, Glenroy doesn't care. He doesn't choose a side. He just does it to fulfill his basic needs. So I think the author is just trying to say that if you believe in one side fully, blindly, without looking at the other, then you're ridiculous.
Okay. Laura.
I think Glenroy understands the concept of God through himself, as in himself he is God, and maybe he sees other people in the society that are so devout and everything, and then he wants that too, and maybe that's why he's searching for this power that God has to.
Sure. Sounds good.
Can we like right back up there? You speak French? Here's everything.
Yeah, he knows.
No. Because that's when he goes back, right? He remembers.
There's a moment in the
He
book.
says he remembers all the smells. Like all of his memories. Yeah, he goes back, like at the very end, when he goes back to Paris to die, and he's like recalling all the memories that he has.
It just smells like something you forget. It's imprinted in your head, whether you remember what happened exactly or not. You remember the smell, the stench of fish, whatever else.
So I think we heard about the story about tomorrow.
Chloe can send you an email.
I know, but he heard about the
presentation.
The person who had them after died too, like that's when you died.
No, but Yaya doesn't die until much later.
But there's a God from a priest who didn't say anything.
But there's a passage like the book.
No one said anything.
He needs to find it. I know he knows.
There's a passage in the book where he says that he knows
Yes.
his mom.
Karen.
But like what I don't understand is everyone's talking about power. I don't think he's after power, he's after love. Because if he wanted power, he was with the Marquis. Like, he could have attracted king.
With power, you know that everyone will love you. Or
No, not necessarily, because in this society,
He likes Donald Trump,
not everyone
right?
loves the Pope and king, not everyone loves the king, not everyone loves the scientist. Like,
I like Donald Trump.
he used both to get
They should
everything.
kill Mexicans.
He wanted the ultimate.
I think they want
Build
him.
a wall to keep the migrants
Like,
out.
I don't get this power thing. Like power, he could have gotten it through money. And it was like his just made so many perfumes he could get red.
Just me.
And that's why he abandons, like when he sees all of these men and women collapse before him and he sees the power that he has achieved through all of that, he decides to forsake that. Like he walks over all of their bodies to leave, right? So it's kind of like this abandonment of power because you're right, I don't think he's...
If he wanted power, he would have just made the money. He wouldn't have left for 7 years.
He was stupid.
It's like when he was a child and he worked for the man
He is.
where he had to, because he was immune to the disease, so he had to keep
He's like
working.
Indian.
Once he noticed that
That was
his
style.
boss loved him for what he did, where he's really happy
give
with
you,
him,
like, money
he would
just for
leave,
going on
or he
websites
would
to keep
move on to something else, or where he worked in a perfume shop. When, when he's
But
accomplished
no one
what he
actually
wanted,
loved him.
but they loved the fact that he, so it's a kind of love
But
for
it's
him.
not love for him. He wanted them to love him, and that's why at the end I'm like, I don't think he really gained anything because he made people
Islam
love
wasn't
him.
even controversial.
Which
We're
is
still fighting
Isn't
about it.
that still more than just nothing?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You're saying that they loved him, then he left, but he knew that they didn't actually love him, no matter what he did. They didn't actually love him. Like Baldini himself was like, I never really liked the guy. The guy was like, oh, I.
For what he did, right?
No, it never says he loved him.
But they never loved
Okay, they
him.
loved what they gave.
Yeah.
Okay, so he knew he was getting used.
And that's what he knows.
Keeps
That's,
it
he
in
knows
the
that.
That's the issue. He knows that they do not love him. Yeah.
And that's
A
why
combined
he
minimum
learns
average of 7 years.
what he needs to
He
smell
could have
will get
sold
people
the
to
perfume,
much
but
to
instead
it?
he wore his perfume.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
He
Google.
could have made millions with the bottle. Everyone would have fallen in love with the bottle, and he could have made millions and been rich that way. But he wanted to be the only one to wear it.
is
Yeah.
Diego.
Okay, David, and then,
But I think he found that
Because they killed him. Because they loved him so much.
And then at the end, it's the only thing they've ever done out of love.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
David.
ends with, that's the
He
only
loved
thing.
I don't know what sounded bad.
so much, and spent so much that he used that love for his passion to get people to love him. And then it's like, they love me for me because I have that.
David.
But I think he found his